Hi, and welcome to Orphan Sunday, a part of our Crazy Rich series. We are so excited that you've joined us, and we also have some amazing people with us this weekend. And we have the Martin family with us, and we also have Reverend Starla Abraham from CPS, who's a part of the faith-based engagement and community services. So welcome very much to our panel here. So the Martin family, we got Rusty, Shanna, and Michaela. Rusty is part of our staff and media director here. You know, you and I had a lot of conversations and just what God has done in your own life and just through your family. Tell us a little bit about how you came to Fellowship of the Parks.
This is actually my 15th year on staff, and we attended about 3 years before I came on staff. So we've been around FOTP for a long time. It's obviously a great thing that God's kind of allowed me to be a part of.
I know as a church, we've been very blessed to have you here. And you know, one of the first people I've ever met was Shanna here when I came to FOTP. What is your story? How did you and Rusty get connected as a couple?
So we actually met through his traveling, Wisdom Works Ministries. So it was a conference that we put on through the school year, and then did summer camps.
So how long did you guys date before you got married?
We got married about 2 years after we started dating.
I know as newlyweds, you always get talking about family.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about your story. Were you talking about having kids? Was adoption or foster care even a part of your conversations?
We wanted kids. We were on the 5-year plan, as everyone is, and we struggled and struggled and struggled, and then kind of in walks Michaela.
And in walks in Michaela. So Michaela, tell us, how old are you and where are you at right now in your life?
I am 19 and I am currently in college. And so I also am the student worship leader here in Hazlitt, and I'm working my way up to try to be a worship leader here.
I love that. Tell us how you came to be Michaela's parents.
Yeah, that's a long, long story. And so I'll try to, make it as tight as possible. But God had his fingerprints over the whole thing. I was 19 when she was born, and I was going to school at UTA. She was actually my aunt's biological child. So technically she's my cousin. I was actually living and going to school with my aunt at the time. She offered me free room and board. So as a college kid, yes, I'll do that. I'm cheap. I want to live for free. My freshman year at college wasn't very good. Back in my hometown, which was about 3 hours away, I was really connected. So that lure and that homesickness really was a thing for me my freshman year in college. During that summer, I went back home and I wasn't coming back. And so we wrestled with that, me and God did, for the whole summer. And finally, I just really reluctantly said, okay, I'll go back. As I came back, my aunt told me she was pregnant. Now, my aunt was single at the time, so it was a little bit of a shock. Again, I was 19, didn't really know how to kind of handle any of that. And so me and Shanna started kind of dating in November, and then Michaela was born in February, so that following year. Michaela was born on a cold February 12th, 2002. Shortly after she was born, I got to be the first male to hold Michaela. As kind of the story progressed, right, I ended up living with Teresa and Michaela for a couple more years as we were dating, and we had gotten into that mindset of, hey, we're probably going to get married. You know, me and Shanna got to be a part of Michaela's birthday parties, watching her on the weekends, just a ton of stuff. I got to change dirty diapers. At 19 and 20, you really don't want to do that, but especially when it's not even your own kid at the time.
My mom hired a babysitter for our wedding just so Michaela would have somewhere to go and not interrupt the wedding. Well, her mother said, no, she'll be fine. She's just going to come and sit in the wedding with me. Well, Michaela and Rusty were very close, and she was very possessive of Rusty, and I will never forget when the preacher said, does anyone have any objections? And she said, no, just yelling. And I was like, get that kid out of here. Even at our wedding and dancing, she wanted to dance with Rusty. She didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I was like, this kid. The pictures are priceless. Oh my gosh.
So when you guys are dating and going through these things, you saw him have a relationship with Michaela. Michaela obviously was very attached to Rusty. What were you thinking through all of this?
Oh gosh, he was very good with her. I just didn't complain. Her mother was a nurse and worked nights, and so he would have to watch her at night. Like he'd have to change her, feed her. I mean, I'd come over, we'd watch her, play with her, but he was always so good with her.
So it sounded like you were just a natural father, a natural caregiver, and you provided Michaela with something that all children need, especially little girls, is a father's touch, a father's acceptance, a father's approval. It does so much for a young girl's self-esteem.
So you guys had set the stage. Great relationship here, getting married. So where do we go now?
We were married in 2003. We lived in Irving for a few months and then bought a house in Harvest Ridge. So that's when it kind of put us in the Keller area. And about that same time is when we started attending here at Fellowship of the Parks. During the same time, Teresa kind of experienced some sickness and some different things. Michaela's biological father was actually married, and so it was kind of a rough situation family-wise. And he actually passed away during that same time as well. So Teresa, my aunt, obviously was going through a lot of grief and hurt, all that. As she kind of progressed, it was becoming inevitable she wasn't going to make it. And so me and Shanna had a conversation with Teresa. It was like she was in the hospital bed about to have surgery. And we're like, if something happens to you, you know, what's going to happen to Michaela? And she asked, she's like, can you guys have her? And we're like, yeah, like not really even thinking about it, just because you felt like that was the right thing to do. She just kind of progressed worse, stopped eating, and just kind of went downhill. During that same time, we're watching Michaela the whole time. Teresa got to a point that she had went and was staying with my grandparents at the time, which is about 3 hours away. So Michaela obviously went with her and was staying with another aunt and uncle down there. And basically Teresa progressed to the point where she passed away. So that's kind of where we come into the picture. Our adoption is a lot different, and our adoption story may not connect with the masses, but I think the common thread is there's always a need. Whether it's family, whether it's another child that's not your family, that, stepping up and doing the right thing and being faithful to what God's called you to do. We didn't have this mapped out journey of adoption plan. Like it was, hey, will you take Michaela if something happened to me? Yes. That's how quickly that happened. And it's not a hero's thing. I believe this with the bottom of my heart. It's being faithful to what God's called you to do.
We got to throw her 5th birthday party. So I literally got to throw together a party, which was so fun because it was all our friends. Like our friends didn't have kids, so I was like, y'all just come, like it's a party. All these grown adults at these inflatables.
And 5-year-old Michaela.
And 5-year-old Michaela just enjoying, like, what is going on? A little nervous, a little scared. She's super shy, but we had the best time. And so from there, we started the process of guardianship. And at that point, my mom and my younger sister moved in with us into our house, and we're like, we are busting at the seams. We need something bigger. So we put our house on the market, and we did not know where we were to go. But we had to move I was working in apartments at this time in Louisville. So we all moved to an apartment. We had a bedroom. My mom and sister had a bedroom, and she was in the dining room that we makeshift for her. We were trying to do guardianship at this time. We couldn't do adoption yet because there's a waiting period where our house is being built, and we had to wait till she had a room till we had the adoption, the interview. They'd come over and interview us. And so we moved into our house, I believe Thanksgiving of that year, moved in one weekend. I was unpacked, decorated, and that next weekend was our adoption interview, home study. And I was like, we are going to do this. And so we all had to get interviewed, my mom, my sister, I mean, it was just one big party to get interviewed. And then we adopted her in the March of that next year. And March 14th is our gotcha day. Every year we celebrate it.
As I listen to your story, I see what families have done for ages, which is taking care of one another no matter what. But you guys also noticed that there was some difficulties. It wasn't just smooth sailing. Even though God had set everything up, it still wasn't smooth sailing. But you guys were like, no, we're gonna do this. Because it's not just the heart. The heart is the first part. And then we have to go into the legal process. And like you said, we had guardianship for a while because, she has to have a room. Not only does she have to have a room, but that room has to be a minimum of 80 square feet. It has to have a bed. It has to have a chest of, so you have to go through the whole list. And they just were not going to accept the dining room.
No.
But you had to go through the legal process, and then afterwards, after getting everything in place where you knew that you could pass a home study where someone would come in, interview your family, and that was only a portion of it, right? Because behind the scenes of the home study, you turned in a ton of paperwork. You gave them all of your life history, but at the same time, you were also revealing your soul to a stranger.
Yeah.
To receive the right to care for your own blood relative. But you had to go through all of that. And so that's like a level of modesty and humility that you go through. And every child needs to know that their parents, whether they're kinship, adoption, biological, will say, I'll do anything for them. And the problem is, so many times we have people saying, I don't want to be bothered. I'm not going to do it. Why do we have to go through all that? And the thing is, we need people to start stepping up and saying, no matter what.
You start talking about in Philippians 1, when these trials is joy.
Yes.
And what joy is it to bring in a 5-year-old, start off with a birthday party.
Yes,
I mean, what a great celebration into parenthood as you guys adopted Michaela and became parents. And what were some of the challenges? What were some of the obstacles you guys had to work through?
Well, I remember one of the first times we had to punish her was I went in her room and she had chocolate all over her face. And I looked at her and I said, are you eating chocolate? She goes, no. I said, are you sure about that? And so I looked under the pillow and there's wrappers galore under her pillow. I said, you may want to go to the bathroom and wash off that chocolate on your face. And so just, you're as a parent, your perspective changed like overnight for us. Like, honestly, it was really good for me personally. Having Michaela and going through those different things really honestly changed my perspective to, hey, it's okay to show a little grace here. It's not like she burnt the bed up or, you don't have to get all mad about chocolate.
Do you remember being 5 years old?
Yeah.
Do you remember that birthday party?
Yeah.
That's amazing. How long did it take you to see them as mom and dad?
It did not take me long at all. Like, it was pretty quick.
About 2 weeks.
Like, yeah, I'd call them mom and dad, like, pretty immediately.
And when she did that, it was like, oh, okay, this is happening.
Do you remember like going, this is my mom?
No, I don't think so. She was always there. Like, I don't always remember having like a super strong attachment to her, but she was always there. So when they were mom and dad, like, she was part of it.
What a great thing. What you just said is,
Exactly.
I love that, is She was always there.
She was always there. The attachment wasn't there,
Yes.
but she was always there. She was steadfast. No matter what, I could lean and depend on her. And that is exactly what children are looking for. That's exactly what people who may be at risk are looking for. They just need someone to just keep being there. And so eventually, because you were always there, she was convinced that there was nothing she could do, that no matter what, your mom. That is so awesome.
That is. So Michaela, I'm just curious to know, like, what is one thing that your dad did? What is one thing that your mom did that really affirms their love for you?
Before my biological mom passed away, she told me when I turned 5, she would take me to Disney World. When I turned 5, they took me to Disney World with some of the family that me and my dad shared, but also some of her family. It was a giant, big trip to Disney World. So they made that happen, even though it wasn't their promise that they made.
Wow. That's one of the things I think that really leads to strong attachment is doing meaningful activities together.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the key things that I really latched on to what Michaela said is they kept the promise. It wasn't their promise, but they kept the promise.
When God designed families, He provided it to provide safety, is to provide all these things so the child can grow up ready to launch into the real world. And I know from my time being here, Michaela, is being able to see you. I think you just started high school when I first came here, and just to see the development from a distance. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
Being raised in the church with my dad doing what he does and being here all the time and being super involved has made me want to follow in that and work in ministry and be a worship leader and be able to minister to people all the time.
Tell me, how did you come to know Jesus?
They would bring me to church. Right after it was official, we went on our first official family trip to San Antonio. And I started asking a lot of questions in the car about Jesus and all that. And so I asked, when we get home, can I ask Jesus into my life? And Dad said, no, we're gonna do it now. And pulled over on the side of the highway. And we got out and we prayed as a family on the side of the highway. And that's how that happened.
And a cop came up while we were doing it,
Really?
just checking on us.
Getting a ticket for accepting Jesus into your life, right?
Always remember it, right?
You know, it's so funny because, you know, when we train potential foster parents, we train them to know, okay, things will happen in the car. Conversations will happen in the car. But this is so awesome because they're riding, and she said we were officially a family when everybody else was gone, when the agencies were gone, when the courts were gone, and it was the family. I was able to open up my heart and give it to Jesus. Oh, that is just so awesome.
So, Michaela, is there anything that you would love to tell your mom and dad?
As an adopted kid, it can be a really dangerous game to play, thinking of what could have been. Like, if this didn't happen to me, what would my life have been like? Would it have been better? Would it have been worse? But I wholeheartedly believe that my life is so much better.
And what a beautiful story with the Martins to know that what you guys have done totally changed the trajectory of Michaela's life. And I just want to thank you for stepping up. Thank you for being a part of Fellowship of the Parks. Thank you so much for your gifts that you're utilizing right here in our church. I want you to know that our church is blessed to have you lead worship. Our church is blessed to have you be a part of our church family. So thank you, Michaela. And thank you, Martins, for being a part of Orphan Sunday.